Hello, welcome to the Transformations book. We hope in this work to show the meaning of human experience in a way that doesn't quite go along with pop culture's understanding of what it means to be human. I need to give you an example, which is my friend who was irritated about something on his way home from work one day. And the traffic was heavy, and he was a little belligerent, and in his mind, all the other people in their automobiles were the enemy, in a sense. And as he came upon an intersection where there were cars trying to get into the flow of traffic he was already in, he saw this one car inching out, and so he speeded up so that he could make sure there was no space between the car in front of him and his car for that car to get in. His heart was racing, and he was, I don't know, he was a little funny about this victory of making sure that nobody got in front of him on his way home from work. 5 days later, coming home from the same job on the same highway with the same traffic flow, but in a different frame of mind, in a different attitude, he was rolling along, and there was a space in front of him, as is typical, between him and the next car, and a car was trying to get in at the same intersection, and he just took his foot off the gas almost without thinking and allowed one car to slide into the flow of traffic. He didn't even think about the difference of him in behavior while driving on day 1 and day 5 until he got home. And he was struck by the fact that everything in the situation that he'd experienced on both days was exactly the same, except for him. His attitude on one day was that everybody was out to slow him down and get to him and frustrate him. And on the next day, he was virtually, in his own words, not thinking about it much, and yet he took time to allow a car to come into the traffic flow. Now, we could say that his drive home was 2 different experiences in the same situation, So we want to talk about 2 worlds of experience. The world where we seem to be hard or take offense or be frustrated and even resentful and even hostile to the people around us. And the other world where people, even if they're anonymous to us, matter to us in some way. It mattered to this fellow that he would allow a car in. And if everybody on the way home allowed one car in, it's not going to slow people down particularly, and everybody's going to get somewhere in a timely way. We have a video that we'd like you to watch that illustrates this idea of 2 worlds of experience more completely than I've been able to introduce you to. But I hope that you'll get a picture of what it means to be human in a way that shows that it's not the experiences through which we pass that determine the quality of our lives, but it's who we are when we pass through those experiences that dictate the meaning of the experience to us. Watch the video, and we'll talk in a moment. So we hope that little video gave you an illustration of what it means to experience life in one of 2 different qualities. We talk about 2 worlds of experience, where in world 1, our attitudes and emotions, our thoughts are of one quality. We'll call that hard. That is, we're hard against our circumstance, other people, the situation we are in. And the other world is one when we are more soft or more compassionate, more patient. And it's not that we're deliberately trying to figure out whether to be hard or soft. We already, in any given moment, are hard or soft, depending on the quality of our hearts. But by being able to acknowledge that we are the author of the emotions we experience and the thoughts that we have, means that we can change them. It means that we ourselves hold the keys to making a difference in the way we experience life. We're not victims of circumstance in our circumstances. And one of the things we want to point out in our work and in this book, Transformations, is that when you and I have our hearts right, people matter to us. The circumstances and situations we're in, we're not naive to if it's a matter of injustice or tragedy or prejudice, or even the misbehavior of other people. The most important thing to us and the quality of what goes on in our lives is the quality of our hearts. We hope you can look back in your own experience and say, have I had a situation like this? Have I experienced times when I've been hard? Can I recall a time when I have been soft? If you cannot find an example in your own experience of the two worlds we're showing you, this will remain an abstract idea and just be fluff and a cloud in the sky. But if you can say to yourself, I've been there, I've done that, I've been hard, I've been soft. It might be with your employer, with your spouse, with your children that you've been hard or soft. What's interesting to us is that you know the difference when you look back with a soft heart of how to behave or how you were thinking and feeling when you were being hard compared to being soft while you reflect on the past. If you try to reflect on the past while you're still hard, you'll still feel that things were always somebody else's fault. The best you can do in life is cope. And the whole purpose of the Transformation book is to say it's probably realistic and better and more beneficial to have hope that you can have a soft heart and change than it is to have to run around in life coping with a hard heart that you think, while being hard, you can't do anything about. So that's our introduction to what we're going to try and talk about in this Transformations book. But if your own experience is not telling you what's possible, you won't see much of what we have to offer. Can you come up with a story? Can you reflect on, even write it down, go to a journal, and write out a time when you went from hard to soft or soft to hard? And see if your own experience doesn't teach you the meaning of what we're getting at. Because your lived experience is the first witness of whether or not what we're talking about is realistic. Thanks for coming to the Transformations book. Welcome back to the Transformations book. Hopefully you've had a chance to reflect on and even write a story from your own experience about being hard-hearted or soft-hearted. We'd like to show you another story from a very famous film, To Kill a Mockingbird, where a man is on trial for a murder and where a mob has decided they're going to take the law into their own hands. Gregory Peck is the defense attorney who is camped outside the jail in the middle of the night as the mob approaches. You're going to see a situation where some people start hard and some people are softened. See if you can figure out not only when that happens in this clip, but explain how it is possible that people who were bent on a hard-hearted approach to something suddenly have that hardness dissolved. Watch the story and we'll talk about it in a minute. So, as you watch this scene, what did you discover about how change is possible? Sometimes when we talk about being hard-hearted and soft-hearted, people think that being hard is the only way to make it in the world. And they have all kinds of rationalizations, even excuses, that keep them from softening, from taking other people seriously. In this particular scene, did you notice that an innocent girl, a girl who had no dog in the fight that was going on in that scene, recognizes a member of the mob? And by the way, what's a mob? A mob is an anonymous group of people who have no identity, and they rampage seeming to be something different than if we saw them as real people. This little girl saw the one man that she knew as real and was a friend of the man's boy in school, and calls him by name and invites him to say hello and to be human, so that to her, he was not a thing. He was a real person that mattered because he was the father of a young man in school that she palled around with. And were you, did you enjoy the transformation of the father from grim, demanding thing to a human who had been recognized by a little girl by name and as a person who mattered? And it dissolved the hardness that he felt. And evidently he was one of the leaders of the mob, and so tells everybody to go home. It's a fantastic example of change in an extreme situation. And we're going to claim that if an extreme situation can be that, it can have that kind of change, then surely in our everyday lives and the simple things and the way we greet each other and the way we treat each other, certainly we can be as soft in those situations as the leader of the mob eventually became because of the invitation of an innocent girl.
We need another story. They need to be invited to tell another story.
Oh, do you want to bring it back and edit it?
Yeah, let's.
So, all right. Yeah. So, having watched this little clip, the last thing we'd ask you to do is to find another story from your own experience. Again, the more you're willing to write it instead of just think about it, the more concrete it will be, the more realistic it will be, and the more meaningful as you consider the idea of change. Only in this story, we want you to emphasize how it was possible to move from being hard-hearted to soft-hearted. You'll have to pick a time when you were resentful, hostile, frustrated, feeling yourself victimized by others in some way, and how you went from being hard and even vengeful, strong word, but maybe that's the extreme, to compassionate and perhaps even forgiving. We'll talk later about, by the way, how forgiving is not necessarily excusing someone. But we'd be interested in a story from your own experience that says, you know, I have been hard and I have experienced being transforming myself from hard to soft. But if you are willing to write it down and even submit it to the transformation site, your story can help other people learn from their stories. Thanks for being a part of the Transformations book. So after you've thought of a second story from your own experience regarding going from hard to soft, we recommend you go to the Transformations book and pay attention to the talk by Dallin H. Oaks that we have identified there, The Desires of Our Hearts, where the quality of our hearts informs the quality and value of our desires and what our hopes are, what our dreams are, and how to go about pursuing those without being, well, hard-hearted. We wish you the best in going to that article as well, and we'll see you next time.